women have it better than men. Or do we? There's one area where we have it better. We have society's acceptance. Acceptance whether we work or we stay at home. Now, of course, we face constraints, financial and logistical, which might limit our choices. But fundamentally, we have acceptance to be anywhere along a spectrum. And you can imagine that spectrum right here. So over here, we have 100% full-time work. And over here, we have 100% stay at home. And in the middle here, we have part-time working. Here, 20%. Here, 80%. And right here, 52.5%. That's what I work today. So where are you on this spectrum? There's a lot of focus these days on diversity in the workplace. And it's an important topic. With still only 20% of senior roles held by women, there is so much to do there. But that's not what I want to focus on today. That's my day job. I'd like for us to explore a less discussed part of the gender equality debate. Equality for men in the home. There are so many efforts moving women in this direction. And where are the efforts to enable men to move in this direction? As more women take on leadership roles, and let's be honest, with limited seats at the table, it gets a little crowded here. And what other options do men have? Could it be that the power we perceive men as holding onto, they might not want? But without acceptance, what else do they have? Imagine a world in which men too could freely choose their place on the spectrum. And what if we could break the status quo, which keeps men stuck working 100% as the main breadwinner? Now, in theory, men have freedom too. And we see examples of men who work part-time and who are stay-at-home fathers. But they are in the minority. Only 7% of all fathers in America are stay-at-home. The brave few who break the status quo face challenge. So one stay-at-home dad who I interviewed told me he raises his 4 children, he supports his wife's career, and he's been doing this now for 17 years, and still gets asked on a regular basis, when are you going back to work? Brave men like this who break the mold deserve our admiration and our acceptance. And all men deserve society's acceptance for taking even a small step along this spectrum. The first small step could be taking paternity leave. So my husband, Peter, came home from work the other day and he said to me, "We should have a 5th child." So it's not the first time he's said this, and the answer has always been a definitive no. So I was intrigued, what's different now? And he told me that his company has just introduced a new policy giving fathers 70 days fully paid paternity leave. Wow. So sadly, much too late for us. But this is great news for new parents, right? Or is it? Because what we see is the fear and concern that men feel mean they may never take this. They ask, what will this do to my career? And companies that are already offering 20, 30, 40 days of leave see men simply aren't taking it. One Swiss retailer reports only 17% of men take what they're due. So we need men to see the reward of taking this time with their family and to feel secure enough to take on their fair share of home involvement. So what's getting in the way? Well, I think our mindsets might be getting in the way. Mine definitely is. So I grew up with amazing parents and a very traditional model. My mum was here. She raised 3 children and she managed the home. And my dad was over here. he made and sold glue. And for me, this was normal. Now fast forward to today, and my husband Peter and I have chosen a different setup. We both work long hours. And several years into our marriage, I realized something. It was 6:30 in the morning, and I was frantically making 4 packed lunches for school, and in my head running through the dentist appointments, the babysitting, and the pickups for that week, this invisible burden of project managing family life. And I looked up, and I saw him in the front room, pedaling on his exercise bike, watching a movie. And in that moment, I realized I am recreating my parents' setup. Now, it turns out I'm not alone. In fact, the majority of us still believe women should be responsible for managing the home and raising the children. And the data is staggering. A recent report by the American Sociological Association found 75% of people polled believed women should be doing the home tasks, and 82% said the same about raising children. We know it doesn't need to be this way. We can learn from the younger generation. So the majority of today's 17 to 23-year-old believe parental leave should be equally shared. And this generation, more than any generation before it, cares deeply about work-life balance. So perhaps they'll make different choices. The other group we can learn from are same-sex couples, freed from the traditional gender stereotypes of how to divide the home tasks. They have to discuss it and decide consciously. And what we see is by deciding consciously, so they are more balanced. So we look at dual career couples, and we find that 40% of heterosexual couples leave all of the homework to the woman, compared to same-sex couples where only 17% leave everything to one party. So what about you? How do you divide your home responsibilities? Do you decide, or is society deciding for you? It's not just a question of who should be doing these things at home, it's also a question of who's competent to do it. And here, an ingrained belief in society is that of male incompetence. So I'm guilty of this. It sounds like some of you might be too. As a new parent of twins, I would stand watching over my husband while he changed the nappy, and I'd say to him, "Hey, you missed a bit there, and get that bit." Well, he solved the problem by leaving me to finish the job. And I realized I'm disempowering him. And this view of male incompetence is not only disempowering men, but it isn't helping women either. It's estimated in the UK that women spend on average 3 hours every week just redoing tasks that they think men didn't do well enough. This view of male incompetence is so ingrained in our media. Whether you're watching The Simpsons and you look at Homer Simpson, or you're watching the children's cartoon Peppa Pig, in which Daddy Pig is a bumbling fool. He can't light a barbecue, he can't read a map. In fact, all he does is lie on the sofa watching TV. What message are we sending our children about the role of men in the home? We only need to watch an episode of Mad Men to be reminded of the outrageous biases that women faced in the workplace 50 years ago. Will people look back on us today and see equally outrageous biases against men in the home? We've come such a long way in realizing the barriers women face at work. As we continue working to remove them, let's also remove the barriers that men face outside of work. And perhaps then each of us can choose our place on this spectrum, and regardless of gender, all of us can have it better. Thank you.